Welcome, everybody. It's Monday morning. All these fun people are joining us. We'll let them there's a big burst of people. We want to say welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. And we also want to welcome our guests for today. We have journalist and author Michael Wolff on with us. He's here live with us, new to Substack. But Michael, you're climbing the charts. You're making a splash here in the Substack community.
Yeah, well, it's been great. I mean, as the whole social media world is a new one for me and a startling one, but I'm actually glad to be in it. It's actually much better than the old media world.
Yeah, it's an interesting new space. And so we're going to talk with Michael all about his new legal fight with the Trumps over Jeffrey Epstein, some other questions about the president. Sorry, Senator, would you like to say good morning? I'm sorry. I'm just talking
I
right
would,
over you.
I think you're on a roll, man. You're doing good. Absolutely, it's great to have Michael Wolff on. I do have some pretty foundational questions to ask you once you get done introducing him and talking about all the good stuff you're talking about. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we are going to talk about all this stuff with Trump's and Epstein and Congress and all of it, but we have to talk about what happened last night. Okay, so this vote, the procedural vote that happened last night in the Senate signals movement to end the 40-day government shutdown, right? 8 Democrats joined Republicans to vote on this continuing resolution, a stopgap measure that really just funds the government for the next 3 months. This isn't a long-term thing. Senator Tim Kaine was one of the new flips here. He said he backed this because of promises secured that reverses any layoffs made during the shutdown by the administration and would ensure back pay for furloughed workers. I'll just mention there was a law that guaranteed back pay for furloughed workers. But let's talk about it because there are people really upset. I've heard from Democrats, Senator, who say this was the right call, that we need to reopen the government, that the SNAP funding was a disaster for 42 million Americans. And I've heard from both elected and non-elected Democrats saying, what are they doing? This was their only piece of leverage. So let's get into it with Michael and John Tester.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Thanks, Michael. That's good. Well, first of all, I would just say a couple things. Number one, this was Trump's shutdown. This is the longest shutdown in history. Happened in the Trump administration. Second longest history happened in his first. If you're sitting there in the United States Senate, not really any good choices because, quite frankly, as what's happened to Schumer, by the way, you could get attacked for voting to keep the government shut down, or you can get attacked for voting to keep the government open. And I would just say this: keep in mind who you want to focus your anger at, because this was Trump's shutdown, and it could have never started. It could have been ended anytime he would have told Congress, because Congress only does what he tells them to do. Anytime they said, "Let's do it," so no good choices. So if you're sitting in the Senate and you're still getting paid, and you don't have to worry about feeding your family because you're not on SNAP benefits. And you don't really have to go anywhere, so you don't have to worry about flying. It's pretty easy just to say, just keep it shut down. On the other side of the coin, we've got a president of the United States that's in it for himself. There's no doubt about it. That he's willing to starve people, just starve kids and old people. Okay. And if I'm there, I'm saying to myself, Jesus, the word that came out this weekend from many of the senators is they want to revamp the healthcare system. They don't even want to put the subsidies in to keep our premiums down. They want to revamp it. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've been here before. I was there when Obamacare was passed. Was it perfect? No. But were there any other better programs that were put forth for the Democrats and the Republicans to vote on? None by the Republicans. I'll just tell you that. And quite honestly, it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do now, because now the ball is in their court. And the Democrats were trying to save them from their own pro-inflationary policies. And now, guess what? They wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't put in the premium subsidies. Now we're hearing different senators say, well, we're not going to do this program anymore. We're going to do a new one. I can't wait till we see the new one. Heard another Republican senator say, hey, we're going to write checks to the people. We're not going to write them to the insurance companies. Well, number one, that's socialism. And number two, Where do you think those checks are going to go for that health care? It's going to go to insurance companies. So what the hell's the difference? So besides it being socialistic. So all I would say is that remember several things. Number one, this was Trump's shutdown. He wanted it to happen just like the one that happened in his first term. And quite honestly, when you put yourself in a position where you can't feed your family because you've got a president that won't do what every other president's ever done during a shutdown and help with SNAP benefits, it kind of makes the situation a lot more, we need to get something done. Now, the people out there will say, well, you know what? Trump's going to do it again. I can't argue with that. He probably will do it again. But the truth is people need to wear what they want. And if they want inflation, if they want healthcare premiums to go up, that's exactly what these votes are going to be on moving forward. So, look, I could argue the other side and say, you know what, Democrats screwed up on this and they shouldn't have voted on it. But the truth is, when it comes to feeding people, and you've got a president that doesn't give a damn about feeding people, it's time to step up the plate and do something. Because hungry people in the richest country in the world is not acceptable.
Michael, what are your thoughts?
Let me push back just a bit here. I know what has been going on, or I know something about what has been going on in the White House, what Trump's view on this has been, and what he has said to aides and Republican leaders who have been very nervous about this. What he has said is, and I'm quoting now, they'll fold, they'll fold, they'll fold. And if they do, we win, we win, we win. Trump has this thing in which he always speaks in threes. Um, and and I think that goes to the heart of Trump's secret. It's all about winning. Really, nothing else matters to him. It's what he can win, and winning is his political formula. When he wins, and he always does seem to win, even when he loses. I mean, there's something fundamentally irrational about him. He pushes forward and pushes forward and pushes forward, and rational people fold. They get scared. They don't push back. And that results in him looking like he is unchallengeable, indomitable, that everybody folds. The thing about authoritarians is that they win because people are afraid of them. Or, said in a different way, they win because people don't push back. They blink, authoritarians don't. So while I accept absolutely everything the senator has said, this is terrible for people. Terrible, terrible. But the situation that we are in is that if you give a win to Trump, it gets worse, as it has been now for a very long time. It gets worse and worse and worse. The only thing, in my view, that has any hope of of stopping him, derailing him, slowing him down, is pushback. You just don't move.
And I get that. Can I go? Do you want to go, Maurice, or can I go? I get that. I do, and I've been in the political fray up until last year for 25 years and longer before that. Um, and I agree with you. It's all about political wins, and that's the problem today. It's
Well,
all
I'm
about
gonna I'm
politics.
gonna even push
It,
back. The
it's not
Democrats.
about the American people. It's not about the American people, and that's the problem. And I will also say this: the people spoke very loud in the last election, but the election before that, they spoke very loud too. And they gave the House and the Senate and the presidency the power. And they have the power because they're in the majority in those, and they control they control the presidency. And I would just say this: when you got the power, you use it, and they'll use it till they take it away. And I think this last election pointed out that the people are pretty damn sick of what's been going on, whether you're talking about inflation, tariffs, what's going on with ICE, all this stuff. is not going well with the American people. And now it's going to be healthcare because they aren't going to be able to come up with a program unless they come up with single payer, which, by the way, I think we're on the track to. But unless they come up with a single payer, they aren't going to come up with a program that works.
Michael, I'm gonna let you push back, but, we have comments in here, and I'm hearing it too, that why did this happen now after the big election wins on Tuesday? That the Democrats won really big, that, Michael, you're saying there was panic inside the White House over that? So why was it last night? Why did this happen last night? And what's your pushback, Michael?
I mean, my pushback on what the senator was saying is that Democrats see this as in terms of a political crisis, and I think that ought to be promoted into an existential crisis. Yes, people need their SNAP benefits, but they need a free country as much or more. I think this happened. I don't know why this happened last night. I mean, it seems like, I mean, clearly Trump was losing this shutdown. I mean, he appeared remote, disengaged, unfeeling, like he just seemed like a real shit. So why the Democrats would not have continued to press that and exploit that situation, I don't know. But again, I mean, I think that they got to day 40. They made their point, the longest shutdown in history. They had a good election, so now it was time to take their win, I suppose they might see it as. But I I think it's a profound error.
I uh, I would just say that I'm not in the middle of the fray. Oh boy,
Uh-oh,
sorry.
someone's calling to buy grain.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, I don't know who the hell's doing that, but if it happens again, I'm gonna have to go talk to my wife and have her take the phone off the hook. But at any rate,
You still
uh,
you still use a phone, a landline.
I
Oh,
still
yeah.
use I still because I don't have cell service where I live, right here anyway, which is pretty amazing. But at any rate, you're right. Free country is very, very important. But I think that you know very well if the people of a free country are hungry, it causes chaos. I think Trump is hankering to use the military against our own people. I think he would love to see that happen. I think we're seeing ICE do some of it. And so consequently, I think the hunger issue is a huge, huge thing. And just one thing, I don't think Democrats did this for political reasons. I think this did this because Democrats like to govern, and
Well,
they were
as
seeing,
I say, when I say a
yeah,
political crisis, they see it as a crisis. I don't mean as beneficial to this side
yeah,
or that, but a crisis of process and a crisis of how you work the system. So
yeah.
I think they're doing what they know how to do. This is what Democratic politicians know know the procedures of government. They're a little weak on the existential side, whereas Trump is not. I mean, the last book I wrote about Trump the title was All or Nothing, which is Trump's. That is his temperament. He is, remember, willing to go to jail, willing to do all this. He's willing to do things that no ordinary politician would do, which is profoundly dangerous.
No disagreement here. No disagreement.
Okay, so I will say that this is not over. That was just a procedural vote, and there is a big campaign to get folks to write their Democratic senators from those states, the ones who defected, to say, "Hey, don't vote for this again." I hear a lot of chitter chatter and rumors, and we don't know until it happens what's going to happen, but we'll see. There's just a lot of turmoil in Washington D.C., as we know. I also want to talk about this pardons list, and I think, oh, go ahead.
By the way, that turmoil, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, Michael, but that turmoil is exactly what Trump wants. He likes things to be up in the air.
Oh, absolutely. Chaos is his magic, without question. I mean, the only thing that I would say is that this was one of those interesting situations where it came down on his head rather than the Democrats. I mean, I'm sure that's part of their calculation that that could change at any moment. But
Mm,
Yep,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It a lot of the biggest anger that I'm seeing is that the Democrats had leverage. That was the only leverage they had, and they gave it away.
No,
And so
I
you don't think
disagree with
okay.
that. I don't think they had any leverage. They don't control the House. They don't control the Senate. They don't control the presidency. The people who had leverage here are the people that are in the majority. The majority is what runs this country. It isn't the minority.
Okay, so let's talk about this pardons list. President Trump pardoned a whole list of people involved in the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen, and the people who tried to help overturn the results of that on the list, of course, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. These pardons are, of course, only for federal charges. But like, why now? Is this a red herring? Why are they like, what is this focus still on the 2020 election? I mean, he's in office.
well, let's remember Trump is an obsessive. He is I think he's unbalanced, unhinged, and this the singular preoccupation is 2020. It remains that for him. When you speak to him, which I have spoken to him at length about this, you think, oh my God, this is not a person in touch with reality. This isn't He lives in another world when he thinks about this. um so and then the other why now things is that there is no why now. It's literally with Trump. What did he wake up in the morning thinking about? And there are reasonable, I mean, let's not go out on a limb here, but reasonable voices around Trump who steer him somewhat away from this. I mean, they never say don't do this, but they distract him. And then he wakes up in the morning, remembers this. I got to pardon those people. And he does it. And the pardon thing is also a weird Trump thing. And he has, from 2017 on, he has reconfirmed it. So I have the power to pardon anybody. I can pardon anybody. They can't do anything if I pardon people. So it's almost that reflex. I got to do something. Okay, what can I do today? I can pardon people, and I have to. I I have to make my power. I have to make that real. So what do I do? I pardon Rudy Giuliani, who he doesn't even like.
So, yeah, I mean, Senator, what's your take on this?
My take is that he's sending out a message, and that message you sent out since he got into office, and that message is, if you're on my side, you walk, no matter what you do.
Well, that is certainly true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, the other big headline before we get into Epstein is that the Supreme Court said that it will not take up a case that looked to overturn same-sex marriage in this country, that they're ruling that legalize that. So that is the other big headline for today. But let's get into our guest here, Michael Wolff. Thanks for talking some headlines with us, Michael. So I want to do a little bit of a primer. Um, you've written multiple books on Donald Trump. Like you said, you've talked to him about all kinds of issues. You've
Or
also interviewed 4 books, 4 books. You've also interviewed Jeffrey Epstein many times. You say you have more than 100 hours of tapes of those conversations. So I want to start with this latest news and we'll kind of work backward. But basically, you've been very vocal about the Trumps. You've been very vocal about your conversations with Jeffrey Epstein. You have not shied away from having conversations, doing interviews, going on social media, like you said, being here on Substack now, writing books. So in October, you heard from lawyers representing the First Lady, basically threatening you with a lawsuit for $1 billion for defamation. So tell us what you did next, because you pushed back in a really big way.
Yeah, well, I got a letter which a number of other people have gotten. Anybody who seems to try to connect the president and the first lady with Jeffrey Epstein, and by the way, you can see that connection in a whole set of photographs. But anyone who is publicly making this case gets a letter and says, you better retract this and apologize, or we're going to sue you for $1 billion. Um, so I got this letter, and and I'm been a writer for a long time, so I'm familiar with libel, defamation, and the importance of free press. And I have lawyers who are also, that's what they do. And we sat down and thought how to do this. And obviously, I wasn't going to apologize. Everything I've said is true and provable. I wasn't going to pay him $1 billion for the obvious reasons. So we thought about that, and my lawyer said, okay, they're threatening to sue us. That's what they say they're going to do. Let's take them at their word. And before they could do this, we went into court and sued them. And we sued in New York State, which has explicit laws against using defamation lawsuits to basically shut people up. I mean, in New York, those are called slap suits. You have no hope of winning, but you sue anyway to intimidate people. And in New York State, there are anti-slap laws. So we've sued under those laws, and that also, having done that, gives us subpoena power. So we will now subpoena the first lady and the president and anybody who knew about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So we have a chance, and for a journalist, this is like, God smiling on me. We have a chance to finally uh, really open up this whole discussion about Jeffrey Epstein and what he meant to Donald Trump.
Michael, can I just back up just a second? And I
Sure.
appreciate that answer. But how did you get to how did you get to the point where you could interview Trump and interview Epstein? What are the circumstances?
You,
'Cause
you know,
that
people are always asking this about me, and how does this happen that I get to this kind of proximity? I mean, I'm a liberal New Yorker, and I also became Rupert Murdoch's biographer and spent a year with him. How does this happen? I don't know. I think it's just because I get in a room and I keep my mouth shut and I just listen. And the Trump story is, Trump is a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker. I worked for New York Magazine. That was a magazine that he wanted coverage from New York. He used to call me up, and this was in the '90s, and we were perfectly friendly. Um, and when he started to run for president, I wrote a piece about him, which I would not say was flattering, but he was on the cover, and he liked the cover. Great cover. I got, he sent it back to me, scrawled like this. And then when he became the president, I went to see him. I said, I'd really like to come into the White House and write about the first 100 days and be an observer. He thought I was asking for a job, deputy assistant observer. And then I said, no, 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 I want to write a book. And then he was not interested. Sure, 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 whatever. That was like that. And that gave me entree to the White House for about 7 months in, um, in 2017. And then I wrote my first book, Fire and Fury, about that experience. And then Epstein, again, we're all New Yorkers, and I had sort of known him. Epstein had been among a group of wealthy men who had tried to buy New York Magazine at one point. I knew him through that experience. And then he went to jail, and then after he got out of jail, he called me up and said, he was pretty straightforward. He wanted to rehabilitate himself, and would I write about his life, and particularly about the people who came to see him, who he knew. He operated this kind of salon in his house. And And I said I probably wasn't interested in this. I mean, I kind of thought he was a sleazy guy, and my children were like, wow. But then he would call me and invite me. Do you want to? Bill Gates is going to be here. Do you want to come over? And you're a journalist. Somebody invites you to have lunch with Bill Gates, and you say yes. And this this went on, and this was pretty damn fascinating. And I guess I showed up and listened and talked to him more and more. And I thought this is one just incredible story. And then in 2015, when Trump started to run for president and I started to cover it, Epstein started to talk to me about his relationship with Trump, which was which was deep, insightful. I thought, oh my God, this is the guy who really knows Trump, and devastating, by the way, the kinds of things that he said. So I continued to talk to Epstein right up he until he died. I think I am actually the person who got the last message from him before he did die. So I have a pretty deep understanding of the Epstein story, and especially how the Epstein story relates to Donald Trump.
Do you think he committed suicide?
Um, I've been agnostic on that. I don't see how he could have killed himself the way people say that he killed himself. But I think if anything nefarious had happened to him, then at least a half a dozen assistant U.S. attorneys and probably a dozen FBI agents would have had to have kept their mouths shut for all this time, and that is also as unlikely. So I'm like, I don't know.
Gotcha.
A lot of people feel that way. So, in some of the conversations you've had about your time with Jeffrey Epstein in your conversations, you said you've seen some of these pictures of that Jeffrey Epstein had in his safe of the president with young women who were topless, and I'm wondering, that's okay. So, I know we don't know what's in these Epstein files, what the Epstein files even means, right? That we don't know if it's like a big stack, if it's just pictures, if it's testimony. We don't know what it all includes.
We
That
don't even
hasn't
know. We don't know if it's all together in one place, who controls
right.
what parts of it. Yeah, yes. So the Epstein files is more a metaphor than it is an actual thing.
So based on what you know, your conversations, what you've seen with your own eyes, what is Congress missing here? The House members who are saying, we're going to go for these, we're going to go for these. And once Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva gets in here, we get that vote, we're going to go for these and press this. What's the thing they're missing? What's the question they should be asking? What do you think the journalists should be asking who are covering this whole mess? As we also have ICE raids and the government shutdown and war in Ukraine and everything else that we're trying to cover.
Well, from my point of view, and this is really reflects the conversations I've had with Epstein himself, the most devastating thing. So again and again, people have had relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, and they have been penalized for it. The most recently, Prince Andrew, or no longer Prince Andrew, obviously. But the one person who has had the longest relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the deepest relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, these are two guys joined at the hip for more than a decade. They knew everything about each other, their social lives, their sexual lives, their financial lives. That guy is Donald Trump, and he is the one person who has not been held accountable for that relationship.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, either one of you, but when when Trump was running for president, wasn't he all about releasing the Epstein files? I mean, didn't I hear that?
Well, I think there were other people. I think the MAGA people were all about releasing the Epstein files, and I think he was, in his way, he was more of a sure, sure, we could do that, sure, sure. And the Kennedy files, sure, sure. I mean, he was trying. I think if you look at those statements to glide past this, and then when the MAGA people who he like Kash Patel, who he put into high office, were suddenly, yeah, let's like release the Epstein files. He was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And he closed that down. So that was more one hand not knowing what the other hand was doing, and also I think those people, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, all of those people basically took Trump at his word. And remember, he has said all along, barely knew the guy, didn't, maybe once passed them in Palm Beach, but no idea. Jeffrey Epstein, who? And I think they believed him, and now and since have been quite literally hoisted on their own petard, because there is no one who is implicated as much by Jeffrey Epstein as Donald Trump.
What do you think they've seen? I mean, obviously, we've had lawmakers on here who've talked about hearings, closed door hearings, where they've heard things that they can't share, but that were alarming, that scared them, that angered them about how far this thing went outside of the U.S. even. So, what do you think that they have seen? We don't know what the file looked like, but do you
I,
think
you
they've
know,
seen the
I don't,
Polaroids, for instance?
I don't know um, what they have seen. I suspect they have not seen all that much. Um, and I can only really describe the circumstances and what Epstein has said to me. But a lot of people, and especially people people I know in the Trump orbit and White House, and I've been doing this for 10 years now. So, and it is, I suppose, kind of remarkable that people who are close to Trump still speak to me. But over 10 years, you get to be pretty friendly with with people, and
That's actually one of my questions for you. Like, you still have relationships with people in the White House that
oh
talk
yeah,
to you.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we
That's got
like
to make the president really mad.
Um, yeah, apparently. I mean, since he calls me names all the time. But yeah, no, I mean, we like each other. Actually, people who call me names in the White House are people who otherwise, I would say are, we're pretty friendly. But one of the things, and that they have said to me they said, you don't mean that Donald Trump likes little girls. Um, and that's hard to get your head around that. But what I say, and I think the answer to that is Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were obsessed, literally obsessed. I think it was one of the key building blocks of their life with models. And this is the late 80s through the 1990s when models were the thing: supermodels, runway models, catalog models, girls who just dreamed of being models. It represented status to them. It represented, I don't know, entitlement to them. And these are the women or the girls that they were pursuing. And this was on a constant, virtually daily basis. And remember, both Epstein and Trump had investments in modeling agencies. Trump with his beauty pageants, Epstein with Victoria's Secret. Um, this was who they were. This is how they proudly saw themselves. And obviously Trump married a model of that era. But then the question is the question of age. Little girls. Well, I think that's a red herring. the models at that point in time were of, they were, 14 to 20, basically. So that's the context with which we're dealing here. And were that to be confirmed, is that the silver bullet that would take down Donald Trump? Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
So, to make this a little bit more so I can understand it, you're saying that it isn't about the donors that might be in that file. It's about the pictures that probably are in that file of Trump and underage girls.
Well, I think that the donors, I don't, yeah, I mean, I think that there are many people. I think Epstein and the Epstein emails, and the emails are, over a long, long period of time, are Epstein talking about Trump to a lot of people, Epstein knowing a lot of Trump people, a lot of Trump intimates and friends who he talked about Trump with. Now, Epstein and Trump had a falling out in 2004 over a piece of real estate in Palm Beach. But nevertheless, Epstein continued to know lots of people who went into the first administration, for instance. I mean, have listened as Epstein is on the phone counseling people in the White House in the first administration on dealing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, a person who he knew, I think, as well as has known anyone in life, and I suspect that was vice versa. So I think those are some of the issues that are that would be most telling and most devastating in if one were able to assemble exactly who Jeffrey Epstein was, and um and who his relationships were with.
So you have these tapes. I imagine that's a whole experience that I'd love to know about what that's like for you to go back and re-listen to these tapes. But is there anything in those tapes that you haven't released yet that you're planning to release? Anything that you think will be headline making that you haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, yes, I think so. And one of the things I might say is every time I go back to these tapes, I find something else, because 100 hours of tapes, my operation, so to speak, is just me. It is just me sitting here. So working through all this material is quite a job. I mean, I am trying to systematically go through it now and coming up with a plan in order to release this, or at least make these tapes, um, um, present these tapes in a way that accurately tells this story. But yeah, I mean, this is Epstein talking about. I mean, it's Epstein talking about a lot of people, and that's
Mm.
also revelatory. But also Epstein talking about Trump at great length, and at one point Epstein Epstein became very good friends with Steve Bannon, and Bannon and Trump, or Bannon and Epstein spent an enormous amount of time, some of which I was privy to, talking about Trump. Um, did I get all these names right? Bannon and Epstein talked about Trump. Yes. And because they were both obsessed with Trump, and both very, very smart about the nature of the Donald Trump beast. And so those conversations are,
Mm.
of some of which I have released, but those conversations are really revelatory.
Okay, so I want to ask you about Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva, who has not been sworn in. It seems we're on path to end the government shutdown, which Speaker Mike Johnson has said he will swear her in once that's over. So let's just say, okay, hypothetically, she gets sworn in this week. She becomes the deciding vote. We don't know when that would happen on this measure that would force the House to have a vote to release the files, whatever that looks like. Do you see that going anywhere? Do you actually see a path for that to go anywhere? Or you think it
Yeah,
dies in the Senate?
I don't know. I mean, I think the larger complication are what are these files, and there is the fact that the executive branch controls these files. So um, so it's a question of what they release, what's willingly make it difficult to get, what aspects of this they unilaterally decide not to release for
Mhm.
whatever reason they come up with, and then redactions. I mean, that's the other thing is on some of this stuff. Um, people have actually discussed this with me. Asked them people in the files. Um, have discussed what gets redacted and what doesn't, and what's the formula for that. Is there a formula? Is this random? Is it just somebody protecting somebody else? I think there are all of these questions that are of huge consequence to understanding what these Epstein files are, and then ultimately how reliable they are.
So in the end, do you think they'll go anywhere? Let's say the House passes it. Let's say the House has a vote, which I question whether they will, knowing Johnson. But let's say the House has a vote and they pass it. Do you think the Senate will take it up, or do you think they'll just?
That I don't know. That you would be more informed on that than I am. And I tend to look at these things, these kinds of scandals, if you will. They grind along, and then they maybe have a tipping point. And it's, you pull the thread and it's stuck and stubborn. But then all of a sudden everything unravels quickly. And whether that happens or not, we don't know. I mean, this is what people are trying to do. And I guess the more the more the more intensely they pursue that, and the more stubbornly, there's a chance. Trump has gotten away, and I have witnessed it, with almost everything that no one ever thought he could get away with, including criminal convictions. But Epstein appears to be that one thing that that
Mm.
that hangs on. He can't shake it. It becomes part of him, and even he in his threes goes around the White House incanting Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. So it is stuck to him.
One of our viewers watching along with us brings up a good point. What about the victims, the survivors who have said, "Hey, if you won't do it, we will. We'll release the names. We were there." Do you think that has
Well, I
any?
think I think they have. I mean, a lot. I mean, I think the um, these women have been very, very vocal, and I think pretty straightforward about their experiences. Um, and that's obviously had a great impact. That's certainly in part what fuels
Mhm.
all of this. But I think it's all part of a larger thing. You have a story out there in which pieces are clear, other pieces are not clear. Some pieces make sense, other pieces don't make sense. At the center of it, you have this enigma, Jeffrey Epstein. Was he? Um, uh, what was he? How did he amass all this money? As I say, I've spent a fair amount of time with Jeffrey Epstein, and I'll tell you, I never saw the guy do a lick of work ever. So how do you make all of that money? We don't know. What was his relationship to um, to to regimes, many questionable regimes
Mhm.
around the world? Jeffrey Epstein was, and I mean, I think his métier was to be a connector of powerful people, and but understanding what that what the connector actually does, what he offers and what he gets in return is also unclear. I mean, this is the kind of, I mean, this is a real, and I think this is one of the reasons it continues to stick. It is a story for our time, and were we to get the opportunity to understand that story, I think we would understand so much else. Not to mention, perhaps, how Donald Trump came to be, which is the deepest mystery of our time.
Well, no kidding. So, when's the last time you interviewed Trump?
Um, I saw him on the campaign trail, but I not since he's come, not since this new administration has opened. He apparently did not like my campaign book, but that doesn't mean that I won't see him again. There were he didn't like several other of my books, but then at one point, and this was when he was back in Mar-a-Lago, he heard that I was writing, I think, a fourth book at that point, a third book at that time. And then suddenly he invited me to dinner. So there I am on the Mar-a-Lago patio having dinner with Donald Trump and Melania Trump, sitting between them, trying to unsuccessfully get a drink.
So, are you saying he wouldn't buy you a drink? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I kept, yeah, he doesn't drink, and so I was like, my hand was like, the waiters would come by, can I? And then they would pass by,
Mm.
and that was a moment in which I really could have used a drink.
I mean, what is that like? Is does he razz you? Is he friendly? Like, what's his demeanor at a dinner like that after he's been upset about your book?
Well, this was preceded by, us. We sat down. We sat together in the Mar-a-Lago lobby and talked for about 2 hours. No, he talked. I listened. It's just always with Trump. It's just a monologue. Blah 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 blah. With an incredible force. He's indefatigable. He doesn't shut up. He just keeps going, and it's not necessarily coherent. It's certainly not guarded. I mean, it's weird. And then sitting between the two of them, so the Mar-a-Lago terrace, I don't know, maybe there are 70 tables, maybe a bit more. Um, and then he sits behind a table, right? It was right in the center, but with a kind of red rope around it. Um, and so he's like at the head table of a wedding, like he's the groom. Every night he's the groom. Um,
And there's a red rope around it, like a
yeah,
velvet rope?
exactly, exactly. And so, but then people come up to him. They're allowed inside the rope, and they come up and they speak to him, and likewise Melania. So he's just a wall of verbiage toward everybody. It's really doesn't seem to matter to him who he's speaking to. Whatever it is, the conversation just is on broadcast. And Melania, who seems very nice, but very closed. So she's just responding, yes, thank you. Oh, yes, 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 oh, yes, thank you, again and again and again. And I'm sitting between them without a drink.
Not a drink.
Drink.
Dry as the
Okay, so
bone.
so
Yeah.
this lawsuit that you filed, I mean, let's get back to this and we'll close this out. But you have a GoFundMe to help fund this lawsuit.
You know,
Last I
which has been extraordinary. So this GoFundMe, which was put up just a week ago, and and I thought, I mean, I had just gotten the first legal bill, and I thought, oh my God, and so my wife said, well, why don't we try one of these GoFundMe pages? And I thought, well, okay, maybe, blah, who knows? So within 24 hours, we were at $500,000. I think now we've gone over
yeah.
$700,000. There are almost 15,000 small donors. All of these donations are in are in small increments. And it really says to me, I mean, I'm completely astonished that there is a hunger for people out there to to do something, to find a way to do something here.
Are you worried at all that you're going to be investigated or indicted yourself, as we've seen with some of the other perceived political opponents, enemies?
I think that these people are probably capable of doing anything. Yeah. I mean, I remain not worried. I remain, I mean, I've been doing this, doing what I do for my entire career. Um, and so I'm still in that mindset that we live in that country, that America. But have things so profoundly changed? I mean, the answer is they may well have.
I have one more question, Senator. Do you have a question? I don't want to keep taking over the time.
My question you probably can't answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Uh, the last time you were around Trump, how was his physical health? I think you've already addressed
Mm.
mental health.
I thought it was. I mean, he seemed full of energy to me. I mean, every time I'm with him, I am struck by his physical size, for one thing, but fortitude, and partly it's his voice. As I say, he just keeps talking. Um, but I've never seen anything. I mean, he seems out of his mind to me often, but from a physical point of view, he seems, um, uh, you, you, you know, Jesus Christ. I mean, you think this guy. Yeah. I mean, I hope he doesn't hit me. So
I got you. Yep.
Okay, so back to the lawsuit and the lawsuit that gives you subpoena power. Is there one question? Is there one thing that you want to get them on the record on? Is there one thing that people are coming to you as they're donating to your GoFundMe saying, please get
yeah,
this
no,
answered?
yeah. I mean, I think everybody's interested in this relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. What was going on? I mean, we know who Jeffrey Epstein is. We know what his interests were. At what level were the Trumps part of this? And I think that's what people want to know. Donald Trump is, is a guy who lived a life which I think many people believed would have made him certainly ineligible to be the president of the United States, and possibly ineligible to be in any kind of reasonable society. He lived the life with Jeffrey Epstein of a kind of a proud outlaw. And he has, not been held accountable for that, and somehow in a fluke in a, of nature and politics became the president in spite of that. So I think that there's a certain kind of balance, logic that people want returned.
And you think they'll be forthcoming? Do you think that they will?
Well, I mean, no, I mean, I think they would do anything not to be forthcoming. But you know how you do these things. You triangulate. Someone says this, someone says that. Where were you on the following day?
Mhm.
And if you do it well, you can get close to the truth.
Okay. Well, we would just thank you so much for kind of unraveling all of this and unpacking and talking about all kinds of things. We covered a lot of topics today, Michael, but I'll post to your GoFundMe when we post this interview after this live interview. And welcome to Substack.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And it's a new world.
Michael, I just want to say thank you very much for being on. I appreciate. We don't often get to hear from folks that have been in the room where it happens, and you obviously or been in that room several times, and we
Well,
appreciate.
well, you too have been in many rooms that I'd really love to know what was happening there. So we will continue this conversation.
Oh, so that, yeah, we'll continue this,
Amen, brother. Amen.
and Michael will turn the questions on you, Senator. We thank you, Michael.
Thank you. See ya.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, so Senator Tester and I will kind of wrap this up. Just like so many questions that come out of that, right? I mean, I think I need to make a list of all the questions that I have that will probably come to me throughout the day. Like, what was this like? And what was that like?
Well, after visiting with him, it kind of confirmed what I've thought for a long time. And it just doesn't matter what the House is going to do; they're not going to let this out. This information is going to come out, assuming we have another president in a different president's term, not this
Mm.
one. I just don't think it'll get by the Senate, and even if it does, it'll be. I'm sure it's open to a veto, so then it takes 2/3, and it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's going to
But
come
I
down to
do
other.
think they still need to pry to get the information because I think it's important information for the American people to know. And I think it does confirm who really is the deep state around here.
Yeah, this has been a story that has just captivated attention for many, many, many years now, and people want answers, and it's something that fuels them. They want answers, and it's what we see. You know, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene coming on and joining Democratic colleagues and saying, "Release whatever we have."
Yep.
Okay, so a couple of things that we wanted to wrap up with. First of all, we want to thank all of Michael's viewers who are still with us. This is our show Grounded. I'm Maritza Giorgio. This is John Tester, former Senator John Tester. And we kind of unpack the news of the week. But I do want to say, first of all, somebody wrote you and said that there was an ad that showed up in our audio podcast recruiting for ICE. And so we did not know that. I think that we have fixed that. But if you hear something like that again, please let us know because that is not an ad that we would choose to put in our podcast. And the
Correct.
other thing that I want to talk to you about, which I think really illustrates this time that we're in, people keep writing our show email, our Substack, and your personal email who have been asking you to please vote for the continuing resolution and join the Republicans and reopen the government. And we need to just let everybody know once and for all, John Tester is not in the United States Senate anymore.
Or vote against the continuing resolution. I mean, both sides. And I've been out now for over a year. The election was over a year ago. And I think more than once on this show, we've said former journalists, laid off, fired journalists, however you want to put it. And then the same thing has applied to me, former U.S. Senator, laid off U.S. Senator, fired U.S. Senator, however you want to put it. But I'm not in the U.S. Senate anymore. And that's part of the reason why I tell folks that you could on this last thing that happened last night, you could easily vote for it, you could easily vote against it. There's plenty of justifications both directions, and it's all what you think is the right thing to do as you're sitting there trying to represent your constituency in the United States Senate. So it's all good. But one thing is for sure, going back and beating this dead horse one more time, I'm not in the U.S. Senate. Don't plan on going back to the U.S. Senate. Maritza is not with Scripps, but if the right deal come along, she might go back.
Well, I fill in. I still fill in, and I'm not a retired journalist. I'm just an out of work journalist.
You're just unemployed.
Yeah, I'm unemployed, but I still fill in. I do freelance stuff. But yes, so if you are thinking that John Tester is going to be the deciding vote, it's not going to happen. Like he literally can't. I don't think they'd let you back on the floor.
Oh, no, I can get back on the floor. I can get
Oh
back
yeah.
on. I think I can. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's really a moot point because I don't plan on going back on the floor. Okay, so
Okay.
it's a great place, but we'll leave the floor to the people who are elected. And
There was another viewer question from Louise, and she's concerned about 2026.
Yeah.
And who's running, and we don't want to get too Montana centric here, but who's running, and she wants to know what you think. And so many people have asked if you're going to run in 2026. I'm just wondering if you want to answer that question.
Yeah, and well, I'll tell you right now, I'm too old. Second of all, there's better people to run than I am. better people that will do a better job at this point in time. I will also tell you that I believe, especially since this election last week, that there's going to be one or more really, really, really good people to run not only against the senator from Montana, but also other people, other senators around this country. That, quite frankly, as Claire McCaskill said on MSNBC about a week ago, I think this puts the Senate in play for majorities, and I thought that before the election. And I think it now, and I believe it now, and I think that the Senate absolutely is in play, and these people that have shunned the Constitution and wrapped themselves in the cloak of Donald Trump is going to be really hard to unwrap. And there's many, many, many senators that are in that position.
I would love to have Amy Walter with the Cook Political Report on to just talk about the landscape, because I think that, yes, the calculus has changed.
Somebody who I think we might be able to get on is a guy by the name of Jim Messina, who he was the guy who got Obama elected, and probably has some views on whether places like Montana or any other state, for that
are
matter,
in play.
are in play.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. He also did some work in Greece. Are you getting sick?
Well, some would say I'm already sick, so you know.
Yeah, Jim Messina would be great. Like, we're just throwing out public invites now at this point. Okay,
Yeah,
before we
exactly.
go,
Amy Walters would be great too, by the way. She's really good.
she's great. Your hat, Premium Processing Co-op.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, we're all into eating beef these days, so you know we want to, right? You're a big meat eater, aren't you? Big beef eater.
I quit eating beef a few years ago, but I am
Oh,
surrounded by people who consume beef, so I
that's right.
understand.
Including me.
Yes, including you.
Including me.
Yes.
No, that's
Okay.
great.
So Premium Processing Co-op is the hat this week. We want to thank our guest, Michael Wolff, for coming on and just kind of unraveling all of this, like we said, with us, and helping us understand, what he thinks is happening, what's going on behind closed doors. Fascinated by that. Fascinated that he continues to have sources inside the White House, and that's actually great. I'm glad to hear that journalists still have sources on the inside, because there have been a lot of efforts to stop that flow of information. Oh, we have one more question. You see it? What did you think about last weekend's 60
Yeah,
Minutes report on farmers? All right, go
that
ahead.
was.
Sorry.
I was actually going to bring that up. That's why I had my finger up a minute ago.
Ah,
That was really a really good story, and the two, I'll call them young farmers. They weren't all that young, but they were young farmers from my point of view, that they had on there that talked about um, making ends meet and making the books balance by driving truck and fixing equipment and that kind of stuff, is pretty spot on from my perspective. And I think the interviews with the other guys that were more my age and probably had it made was pretty spot on too, because they weren't nearly as concerned about what's going on with the tariffs and the input costs as they should have been. But those young guys, and those are the folks we're going to lose in family farm agriculture, the young guys that are out there busting their ass every day trying to make things work because they don't have what they need in the bank account to make it happen. I thought they were very informative and very, very good. And even though I don't raise cotton and I don't raise soy and I don't raise corn, I could absolutely relate with what they were saying.
okay. Go check it out. That was on last night's 60 Minutes.
Yep.
All right. Well, we thank our guest, Michael Wolff. We thank all of you for joining us here, both on the video stream and audio stream. We want to thank our friends at Pearl Jam, who let us use their music every week. You can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. You can shoot us an email at groundedpcast@gmail.com. And before we go, I should mention, we are going to try to do a live in-person podcast later this week. And we are also going to have an episode releasing tomorrow for Veterans Day. So lots of stuff happening on our end.
Tally ho, and thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again. In fact, we'll do that tomorrow.